Okay, and now we are going to continue in our Enology Bridges section with Napa's own Eric Hervé. As many of us know, Eric is a specialist on wine aromas, and we have been putting his know-how and knowledge to the test for the past couple of years with this increasing amount of smoke in our atmosphere. Having to deal with that as winemakers has not only been a problem professionally, but also personally, especially throughout harvest. But Eric is going to talk with us today about some updates that he has been working on with his international team of researchers.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Okay, so this is Eric again talking about something that we'd prefer not to talk about. When it's not TCA, it's smoke. So I'm going to give you a quick recap of the smoke markers that we can measure in grapes and wines. And I'm going to spend most of the time talking about a Lake County study from 2018. So what we learned about at that time, what we learned from that. Smoke, you believe it or not, but right now, in the top 3 questions that I get at the lab, one of them is, Eric, what is the threshold for guaiacol in grapes? Okay, we're far from harvest, and it's about grape contracts. Okay, so everybody, a lot of people are trying to put numbers on grape contracts now. So maybe we can elaborate a little bit about that after the presentation, but that's clearly a timely subject. Okay, so what do we measure? That's a model of lignin. So lignin is one of the main components of wood and straw. When it burns, it breaks down. And it breaks down in much smaller molecules that can be volatile, that can get airborne. If you break here with heat, you get guaiacol. If you break here, you're getting 4-methyl guaiacol. And that's the 2 main markers of smoke taint or smoke impact at this point. So there's more that have been proposed. Cresols, there's 3 of them. Phenol itself, the most simple one. And syringols, 2 syringols. When grapes absorb these compounds, they bind them, they tend to bind them to a variety of sugars. And a variety of structures have been proposed recently. And the AWRI offers testing for 6 glycosylated compounds, okay, on a routine basis. So, 2018, we experienced next door the largest recorded fire event in California history. That's Clear Lake here that you see. So it was just north of the Lake County, AVA. So the concern was obviously, okay, are our grapes impacted by smoke? To which extent? How can we measure that? And when the Lake County Grower Commission looked for some information, they got confused. They found a lot of conflicting information, confusing information. So they took the bull by the horns, basically, and initiated a collaboration between the UC extension, the AWRI and their commercial services, their lab, and us, and ETS. And after a few conference calls, we ended up with trial design that was this. So Glenn McGurty from the UC extension collected samples of grapes, more from vineyards, more or less exposed to smoke, split the samples and sent berries samples to us at ETS for direct analysis of volatile guaiacols. That's what we've been doing for the last 10 years. And he did microferments of small-scale fermentations, and that gives wines that can be tasted, samples that could be sent to the AWRI for analysis of volatile markers and glycosylated markers, and sent to us also for volatile and glycosylated markers, on a research and development stage. That's not something that we were offering at this point, and still not for glycosylated markers. I strongly recommend that you read what Glenn wrote in the current issue of Wine Business Monthly. He is presenting the main results of that study. Okay. So, the key findings. Glenn writes that the concentrations of the guaiacol basically was in fruit was not only correlated to the levels in the wines, but the levels in wines were correlated with the sensory impact of the smoke. So we had a demonstration here of volatile guaiacols being good markers in grapes and in wines. So how did levels in grapes predict levels in wines? That's an example of they did two sets of microferments, and that's the ones closer to harvest here. And you have a good correlation between levels in grapes and wines. There's a multiplier between both. We always usually find more markers in wines than in grapes because part of the glycosylated compounds get hydrolyzed during fermentation. But basically, the interpretation guidelines that we've been giving for the past years for grapes analysis were validating. Okay, once again, I would say. So we give results down to 0.5 ppb, and below that, if you know that the grapes have been exposed to smoke, you can't really say that there is no risk, but the risk to experience is really minimal. Between 0.5 and 1, that's not normal anymore. There's some evidence of absorption of smoke. The risk of this translating in wine into off aromas in wine is moderate, but it's clearly present. And then the higher the result, the higher the risk. And past about 2 ppb in grapes, you're almost certain to end up with smoke characters in wine. Second one, so about the relationship between guaiacol levels in wines and sensory. It seems that 6 ppb or so microgram per liter in wines is an important number, not magic, but important. So we give you results down to 1 microgram per liter. Between 1 and 2 with red wines, it's quite normal to find that as normal native background levels in wines, in red wines. So unlikely to have problems with that kind of level. And then the more you increase, the higher the risk of detecting smoke notes in your wines. Basically, in this 3 to 4 microgram per liter area, you're in a gray area where some people notice it, some won't, and it's easy for the characters to be masked in young wines, especially. On past 6, usually everybody gets it. If you don't get it, it's because it's masked by something much more potent, usually another defect. It can be reduction, oxidation, etc. Okay? So, 2017, 18, I mean, a lot of people, of other people were doing microferments. Also, the exposure to smoke happened relatively early. There was time to do that. It's not something we could have done in 17. Okay? There are pros and cons. So with grapes, the nice thing is that you have immediate results. You have an immediate evaluation of your risk. You can't do any sensory evaluation. The prediction, the biggest problem, if you want, is that you don't know what your multiplier will be between grapes and real wines. And there's a good chance that you will get a better prediction with microferments. The problem is you have to wait about 10 days or so to make your to prepare your samples. Okay. Something interesting is that you can do sensory evaluations. I would warn you about that because if you are, as I said, in this gray area where there is smoke impact, which some people will get, some won't, you might fool yourself. It's difficult to detect in these microferments. Okay. So since you're here, I'm going to give you some new information that you won't find in in one business monthly. Glenn says that as the concentration of guaiacol increases, concentrations of all other compounds increase. So if you talk to him, he's going to be like, okay, what's the point? Do we really need to measure more than that? So let's dig a little bit deeper. That's the correlation between, in microferments, guaiacol, so that's the x-axis, and orthocresol, one of the cresols. The correlation is virtually perfect. So yes, what's the point of measuring the second compound when you know already what's going on with the first one? The correlation pretty much perfect. So, but we wanted to look at 32 compounds. So 32 compounds, that's more than 1,000 of these charts to generate. So what you do when you look at that is, when you don't have artificial intelligence, yes, you're doing simple correlation matrices where you put, on both sides, here you have the same compounds, and first, like you on the cell that is on the left, top left, you have guaiacol compared to itself, and you have 1. Yes, because the correlation of guaiacol with itself is perfect. Okay, and if you look at the diagonal, it's all 1s, because you compare compounds to themselves. There is a symmetry in this table. You can look at rows or columns. But basically, for guaiacol, first row, you can see how it's correlated to everything else. And you can put colors to help you see right away what is correlated and what is not. Surprise here, everything is correlated with each other except the serangol's. The 4-methyl-serangol actually was not even detected in most of the samples. That's the same table with our results. That was AWRI, that's ETS results here. Confirmation. With phenol, that's one of an extra compound that we added that seemed to be a valid additional markers. On confirmation that the serangols are not, the free volatile serangols are not good markers in wine, in that case. So we can make things a little bit more complicated. The top or left of this is what you've seen before, 2 slides ago. That's the volatile compounds. And the rest is about glycosylated markers from the AWRI, again. And here we have mostly shades of green, showing that everything is correlated to everything else, except the serangols. That's one of our tables here. I'm sure you can read everything. But basically, look at the colors. The serangols are a problem, except one class of glycosylated serangols that are clearly in green. That's the serangols, the gentiobiosides. So on the left, I put what is in orange is the compounds that are reported by the AWRI, and we confirmed that they seem to be absolutely valid here in California. And there's a couple other markers that seem to be valid too. Okay? So the take-home message here is this surprise about the serangols that did not appear related to smoke impact. So are they absent from the smoke in California? That's unlikely. Are they not absorbed by grapes? That's unlikely too. Especially since we find them as a certain class of glycosylated markers. So they are in smoke, they are absorbed, but it looks like they are almost 100% bound to certain sugars, but not others. So, which contradicts a little bit what has been published recently about an enzyme that has low specificity that can bind pretty much every volatile phenol to glucose. Turns out that glucose is, this binding to glucose is almost non-existent, so things are more complicated than that. So there is a specificity of glycosylation, preferential binding. Guaiacols bind to one sugar preferentially and syringols to another one. So that's what I was talking about. It's not as simple as it seems. The efficiency of glycosylation is variable. With guaiacols, it is partial. There is enough of the free forms, volatile forms, so that they can be used as marker. And with syringols, it doesn't seem to work that way. Stability. Glycosylated guaiacols are fairly, can be hydrolyzed in the early stages of fermentation. The syringols cannot, because we don't even find them in wines. Okay, the volatile forms are not in wine, so the glycosylated, what is bound to sugar, is there to stay, and it's going to stay bound. Okay, so summary of your testing options. So volatile guaiacols, again, that's what we've been measuring for 10 years, and it works fine. Every year it's been challenged because new fire event, etc. But the guidelines that we have are, to me, valid and confirmed year after year. You can confirm at the end of primary fermentation what you had in grapes. The key is really to report super low levels, less than 1 ppb in grapes, at least 1 ppb in wines. Additional volatile phenols can be useful. And now we are proposing that for wines or for microferments, okay, except apparently the syringols. Glycosylated phenols, yes, the 6 AWRI markers are clearly valid, relevant. Other markers may be useful on this. I don't know if it's going to be really a screening tool for grapes because it's quite challenging to do it. There's a throughput limitation. It will be essential to assess oaked wines because at this point we're blind with oaked wines. So we're building a database at this point to try to better assess, have a better understanding of the results. Okay, special thanks to Deborah Sommerfield and Peter Molnar from the Lake County Grape Commission. They really spearheaded this project and they accepted to share all the results with the rest of the wine industry. Other people participating, so UC Extension, AWRI, some of our new additions at ETS, two PhDs. So hopefully we have time for some questions, and thank you for your attention.